Here we are for another round of the 70s versus the 90s, and it's tis the season to do crimes when I put Daryl Dukes, the silent partner, against John Frankenheimer's Reindeer games. And like I said, this is another festive matchup. We got Christmas is just around the corner, and this was a crazy matchup to do. First up, we have Daryl Dukes, the silent partner, starring Elliot Gould, Susanna York, and Christopher Plummer. And also a note, it is also John Candy. It was the first movie that John Candy was ever in. And the script was written by Curtis Hanson, who, of course, would go on to direct such movies as The Bedroom Window, L.A. Confidential, The River Wild, and 8 Mile. But he wrote the script for this one and directed by Daryl Duke. This movie's a lot better than the other Daryl Duke film that I put up in this little series, Payday. Elliot Gould, of course, was one of the greatest actors of all time, and the work that he did in the 70s was just fucking incredible. And this was kind of like the last great movie that he would do for a while. You know, most of the great actors in the 70s kind of fell into obscurity in the 80s by doing some very mid shit, but The Silent Partner is far from mid. Very great script, very good thriller written by Curtis Hanson, and it centers around Elliot Gould. He works in a bank. You know, it takes place in Toronto, Canada, and he gets held up by a fucking guy dressed up like one of them Salvation Army Santa Clauses, played by Christopher Plummer, and that dude's a fucking psycho, you know. But also, before this even happens, Elliot Gould is kind of plotting a way to, like, you know, stash away a bunch of money that nobody's gonna really miss, so he can, like, kind of run off and start a whole new life for himself. And so he kind of uses this robbery as a way of, like, stealing that money. So in a way, that's where the title comes in, the silent partner type shit. And as soon as Christopher Plummer finds out about him stealing, because of course they always report the shit in the news, and it was way more money than he fucking stole, he gets pissed off and starts playing a little cat and mouse game with Elliot Gould, because, you know, he wants that fucking money and shit. So, but the crazy thing is Elliot Gould is a lot smarter than Christopher Plummer. Christopher Plummer may be crazier than Elliot Gould, but Elliot Gould's got the fucking brains and shit. And so, like, you know, he puts the shit in a safety deposit box, and then there's a chick that's involved with Christopher Plummer that ends up, you know, fucking around with Elliot Gould. You know, she helps him, like, fucking stage it to where they can, you know, because he loses the key and all this shit. All the while, too, like, Elliot Gould's character is obsessed with the lovely Susanna York, who's also fucking the boss, who's married and shit. A lot of layers to this fucking movie, you know, but they keep coming back to each other because, like, you know, Elliot Gould has to take the Susanna York to the Christmas party that the boss is throwing, because, like, the boss doesn't want her just showing up by herself, so it look weird and shit. And so, but he, you know, the cool thing about Elliot Gould's character is this ordinary guy that nobody really suspects anything from, so that's why he's able to get away with the shit that he gets away with. And, you know, but then, like, fucking Christopher Plummer, like, ups the ante. You know, he ends up killing the chick that helps him with the safety deposit box in his own apartment, cutting her fucking head off and putting it in the fucking fish tank and shit. And, but, like, he's like, now we both got shit on each other. Well, that don't phase Elliot Gould. This motherfucker rolls this bitch up in the fucking rug. And, like, the film itself is, like, very Hitchcockian. One of, like, very great Hitchcockian set pieces is when Elliot Gould is trying to dispose of that body, and he's going through the fire escape of his, or maybe not the fucking stairs of his apartment, and, you know, the guy delivering newspapers, you know, just leaves his rug there, and the dude almost trips over it. He's been fucking asshole, but you got Elliot Gould hanging off the fucking railing like he's fucking Jimmy Stewart in Vertigo, and that shit, it's thrilling. And then fucking puts this bitch in the fucking, like, when they're laying the foundation of, like, this deep vault, and there's no way they're gonna fucking pull that shit up. And Christopher Plummer's like, I'll give you this, you're smart, you know, but, you know, I want that money or I'm gonna kill you. So Elliot Gould basically sets this motherfucker up again. It's like, we're not doing it at the house, we're doing it at the bank. And he's like, oh, but they'll recognize me. So Christopher Plummer's idea is to dress up like a woman and hold it up and get them, well, basically to get the money. But Elliot Gould makes it look like he's holding the place up, and the security guard ends up shooting and killing Christopher Plummer. But Elliot Gould gets shot in the end. And right before that, he finally convinces, like, Susanna York to go away with him and shit. And I don't know, we don't know if she looked in that bag and saw that money and shit, but once, like, Elliot Gould gets in the ambulance and is taken away, she comes out with that fucking bag and and decides like they're gonna run off together and shit. You know, one can only hope. You know, the movie ends as they're going off in the ambulance. But the ending of that, when Christopher Plummer is dying, is one of the greatest like exchanges, probably even better than that ending of Breathless, where you know he's like his last words are like, he gave me the bank's money, and then the security guard's like, well, of course he did. What the fuck did you expect him to do? Give him his own money? And so it's just fucking hilarious. But The Silent Partner, man, is a great thriller, very well written by Curtis Hanson and very well directed by Daryl Duke, and one of the great like Elliot Gould, one of the many great Elliot Gould performances of the 1970s. And then we move on to John Frankenheimer's Reindeer Games, starring Ben Affleck, Charlize Theron, Gary Sinise, Danny Trejo, Donald Logue, and of course the amazing Dennis Farina. And the film begins with, we see Ben Affleck in jail and with his friend in prison and shit. And they got like, they're about to get out in like 3 days and right before Christmas and shit. And like the friend has this pen pal chick played by Charlize Theron that he's, you know, ready. He keeps talking her up and ready to like go. And Affleck's like, oh, maybe she's, you know, not real. You know how these women do, the fucking send fake pictures and all this shit. But this dude's really excited. But right before, like a day or two before, like they're ready to get out, dude gets fucking shanked in prison and dies. And so now Affleck is like, you know, distraught and shit. And as he's in that bus, you know, on the way home after he gets out of prison, he sees this chick standing there, and he's, I mean, of course, it's Charlize Theron. So, I mean, who wouldn't, you know, jump at the chance to, like, you know, even if it was, like, your dead buddy's chick, you know, fuck it, ain't nobody else fucking her now. So I might as well. And so he does it. He gets off the bus and goes with her, that hotel room, and they fuck it out, like, 3 ways to Sunday, man. Like, there's all, you know, see a lot of it. It's pretty good. Pretty well done sex scenes to fucking Christmas music, as a matter of fact. But then, like, that's when the twist comes, or the first twist. And there was a lot of twists in this film. And it's Charlize Theron's brother, played by the incredible Gary Sinise. That dude was a fucking intense, great actor. And his whole crew of, like, truckers who run guns for people from, you know, from Detroit to Miami and all this shit. And they have this bright idea to hold up an Indian casino that's run by Dennis Farina that Ben Affleck's friend in the movie used to work at. And so, but they think that he's the friend because he lied to Charlize Theron so he could end up fucking her and stuff. And so they get him to try to like fucking help case it and all this shit. And, you know, there's a lot of like funny moments and shit because of course the crew itself is a bevy of like character actors of that time period that, you know, really add a lot of, very good at playing like, you know, criminal types and shit. And especially like Danny Trejo and Donald Logue. But the one that really like sticks out is Dennis Farina as the fucking casino manager. That dude is fucking like, anytime that dude's on the screen, you're like, this is fucking great, you know, because like Ben Affleck, a very mid actor, especially at this time in his career. Like, I will say this, the dude did get better with age, but this was still like, you know, movie star Ben Affleck shit, and it was like lame as fuck, you know. And like John Frankenheimer is a guy that like he's a director that made a career out of doing like really tight knit fucking thrillers. And by the time, now the great comparison of like how a younger director compared to when a director gets older, Frankenheimer only got worse with age. Like he did all of his best work in the 60s right after he got out of television and shit. But this one though, it has its moments, but if the one thing that kills it for me, because like that casino robbery is pretty fucking insane. Like you get fucking Dennis Farina fucking shooting a machine gun, you know, because they like, you know, greed always fucks them. If they just took the damn money and left, they probably would have got away with it. But, you know, motherfuckers just can't be satisfied with a little bit. They gotta have it all and shit. So, but where the movie starts fucking up for me is when the dead friend comes back. Because then it's like, it had an interesting premise until then, you know, then it gets very contrived and like Affleck's not intelligent. He kind of just like, you know, plays it as he goes and shit, you know, and it's fucking lame as all hell. But like the friend coming back, it's like, yeah, it's a surprising twist when you first see it, but the more you watch this movie, the more you realize like this shit's fucking dumb. But like Affleck's able to like kill both the friend and Charlize Theron, blows up the truck and everything, walks away with the money, dressed as Santa Claus, putting money in mailboxes as he's walking back home to Sidway or wherever the fuck he was going. So this round clearly has to go to The Silent Partner, because The Silent Partner is a solid thriller. You know, it fucking, the acting in it is incredible. There's not really any complaints with this movie. Like, it's a very tight thriller. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Like, Elliot Gould's very intelligent. All the shit that happens in it is believable. Reindeer Games, it's like half a great movie. You know, it starts off very strong. There's a lot of complexities to it, very fucked up shit going on. But that fucking third act reveal is complete and utter bullshit. And so, for anybody keeping score, that's 60-49. 70s are up by 11. Like I said, the 70s is the greatest decade for American filmmaking, even the world. This was a fucking Canadian film that beat an American film. So think about that shit. But even around the world, the 70s were fucking great, because world cinema in the 90s really wasn't what it was before. You know, it was like kind of maybe the last vestige of greatness. But like I said, if I've said anything wrong, anything you disagree with, feel free to eviscerate me in the comments. This shit's all open for debate. You know, this is one asshole's opinion going through this very self-indulgent journey of fucking whatever the hell this is. But I just got to prove that the 70s are the greatest decade of all time for filmmaking, and that lead continues to grow. Like, the 90s come back here and there, but they're not able to diminish that lead very much, especially with shit like Reindeer Games. Like Daryl Duke, like, you know, I'm not that familiar with his filmography outside of Silent Partner and Payday, but I'm more familiar with John Frankenheimer's filmography, and the more movies that man made, the more they sucked. So that kind of plays into Tarantino's argument of, like, most directors that keep doing it and doing it and doing it, they keep just cranking out shit when they used to crank out gold. And Frankenheimer is a clear-cut example of that. So 60-49, Christmas is almost here, so, like, enjoy these fucking Christmas matchups. I may throw out a couple more before the holidays are over, so just stay tuned for that. And the next main event will be something special, so stay tuned for that, and have a holly jolly Christmas.